Grace. Now let's get started.
I'll move up. You guys realize it's very far from the mic. You're going to be shouting. What's up? Yeah, I'll see you later. I need you to see his face.
I like this stuff.
You like the colors?
I like the whole stuff up.
Yeah.
Booty in the middle. Let's make it a thing. We gotta take over.
No. Please don't say that. Yes. In Summerton, of course, my online listeners as well. And as you know it, election fever is in the air. If you've been following us here on the Breakfast Lounge on a regular, you know, we've been having various members of various political parties joining me in the Breakfast Lounge, sharing their views and what have you about the upcoming elections, which to date we don't have an exact date when the elections will take place, but nevertheless, though, we're all in campaign mode. This morning I have 3 guests in the studios. We all have to cramp up here this morning, but I'm so happy to have them here. They are members of the PFP party. That's Melissa Gumbs, MP. Good morning and welcome to all 3 of you.
Morning, Grace.
A full house.
Morning, Grace. Morning, listeners.
An entire team this morning. This is basically team spirit I see here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Now, MP Weever, you actually basically earlier this year, you announced that you will be joining the PFP party in the upcoming elections. That's correct?
That is correct. I'm just going to move this in a little bit before Grace chastises me that they can't hear. That's correct, Grace. I did come here, I believe, after dressed in a bright yellow, symbolizing a little bit the colors. But I am indeed running with them, and just as a little bit of a background info for the listening public, from the time that I was Minister of Tayat, I have had the biggest fans in both members of Parliament, Peterson and Gumbs, especially when it came to my path to economic recovery. And it's not something that I forget easily. And so it was a very, very proud decision for me to come and be part of a team that has been supportive of my work, not because of my person, but more of the quality of work that I could produce and the potential that they saw in me. So for that, I am forever grateful.
Mm-hmm. So you saw more support actually coming from the PFP than within your own party. Is that what you're saying?
Those are your words, Grace, not mine.
That's basically what you're saying then.
Well, the thing is, it's very interesting to see it, because if I remember it vividly, so it's definitely fresh on my mind. PFP actually came out publicly with an article on it. The second person to come out in support or group of persons was the Bankers Association, when they were discussing the tax recommendations, or the tax sort of ideas, tax related. And then the other person was Member of Parliament Von Kemper. So for me it means a lot when you cross party lines, especially when you get support outside of a coalition. It shows maturity. I know that the Bankers Association, let me just be very clear to the public, that is not a political affiliation, but for me it was a confidence booster, in the sense of you have bankers that are saying, hey, this seems like a good support, like a good idea, and then supported that idea. Not so much the individual, but the idea that you could make things a bit easier on the island, you increase your earning potential. So I was very, very proud of that moment. And yes, there was a time perhaps maybe I said, well, I'm already part of the team, so maybe it's okay not to get recognition for it. But it means a lot that you see maturity in government, and it's something that attracted me as well to the this party to my colleagues here, and I've just been, increasing that cooperation with them in the way that we work, in the way that I see them working. It's admirable. It's a team spirit, like literally the true definition of a team spirit. And I can't wait to tell people about it more, and you're going to hear it as well. From both of them,
Right.
the way that PFP works as a group. It's really impressive to see.
We've got 3 born St. Martin's here, went away, studied, came back. It is the new faces of politics that we'll be seeing here.
Absolutely.
For the future.
Yeah. I think, we've tried, as MP Weever mentioned, we backed her plan publicly because it actually was already in line with ours. We had mentioned several of the initiatives she listed out in her economic recovery plan as minister in our last campaign manifesto. So I think the opportunity, I'm very happy that she decided. It took a while, took a lot of convincing. Not so much because I think she doubted us, but I think, the way that that parties kind of operate, legacy parties in particular, it kind of frightens you off when you come to a point and you're like, what do I do? Do I stay in this often thankless arena? Do I, bow out and Peter Weever, just like me, comes from private sector. So, there's no concern of where we're going to land if something like that were to happen. But I think, we showed her a different type of energy, a different type of vibe. And I'm very happy that that we're here all vibing together.
What is it exactly the PFP is looking for when it comes to forming a political party?
Mostly people that share the vision. There is a way to do things. I think we are accustomed of a way things have gone in St. Martin, and it's time that way kind of dissipates and disappears. To be honest, we've even gotten that feedback from persons from all walks of life that the way that it used to go is not the way that it can continue to go.
Right.
And I think that in addition to just a general vibe, we are candidates together, but we are also close with each other. There's a lot of focus on rapport building, on getting into that groove with one another, and that sometimes is more important than anything. Something my mom always says when it comes to relationships, like make sure you like each other.
Okay.
You can't like each other. You cannot work together.
Basically, something like a marriage.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you, Melissa, MP Gumbs, and you, MP Weever, you're both actually coming from a political background. Your parents were all, but you have a whole different way of doing it now. It's like, your father even told me here in the breakfast lounge, he said, oh, he didn't want you to enter into politics. And it's like you have a mind of your own. Now you and Peter Weever, same with you also. You why is that though? That sometimes you think that children should listen to their parents, but you're not kids anymore. You're adults now. But when you're stepping into the arena of politics, and this is something really huge, you're basically stepping out of the box from something that you studied for. Now you step into this now. What actually your mindset? You have to change your mindset.
Yeah. Most definitely. And I think, we come, like I said, from private sector backgrounds, and really it's about seeing a different way to manage the country. It's because that is what it is, essentially. You're managing something. And I think governments in the past and present have kind of forgotten that you are actually managing things. And when it comes to our dads, my dad, I've repeatedly said it last campaign up to now that he did not want me to
and he said it too.
He said it publicly. He urged me to branch out, stay where I was and live life. But I think seeing that, there is an opportunity to do things differently that could help St. Martin reach its true potential.
Right.
And bring about that kind of cultural change that we all need actually to grow as a country. That is really what kind of brought it out in me. And it's always funny too when people mention my dad and Peter Weaver's father, because I think they get the biggest headache with us. There was no fanfare about we're handing over the reins to them. In fact,
there was no little black book.
There was nothing being handed over or anything. Because we don't exist in a monarchy. So I think that we've kind of shown it's not like we're being puppeteered. There is no hand on the shoulder kind of situation happening here. In fact, my dad would say, I can only advise you and, see what happens from there.
What about you, MP Peterson?
My reasons to come into politics were a little bit different.
Well, the reason I'm doing this, I want the radio listeners to get to know you guys
For sure,
even better. So let's have somewhat of an introduction here.
No,
Go ahead.
definitely. No, for me, my reason to come into politics was a little different. I knew the group already, Melissa and the core group before I basically decided to come into this. But I got firsthand experience of basically corruption within the ministry that I was working with, and to my personal opinion, I had to fight my ministers to do the right thing. Afterwards, after I got elected, those same cases came up. It turns out that we were right; we were on the right path. And for me, it sort of became a point of frustration, not personally but professionally, because you can have all the right intentions. You can go and study, you can go and come back, you can have your degree, but if the intentions of your ministers, of your parliamentarians, of those who have to govern, who have to manage this country, do not fall in line with the best interests of the people, then they will simply put you to the side to continue their own plans. And I was a victim of it. I fought it. The people chose to place me where we are now, that I can fight it from a totally different perspective. And I think that it's necessary for people to understand the culture, the current culture of government, and that corruption runs deep, hence why we're also going into the curtain in a bit. But for me, it was really, and I think when we did the Sankofa project, I mentioned it as well, it did not come from a place of inspiration. It came from a place where I saw that the people need this. If somebody does not stand up at this point, then it's going to go downhill. And
Right.
so that's where I came from.
Yeah, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything.
Yeah,
Definitely. Now, let's get right to, since we talk about the curtain, the Council of Ministers have indeed approved the removal of curtains. That is basically something that came from the PFP, MP Melissa Gumbs.
Yeah.
Now, a proposal that was actually presented by your party, as I just said, to prevent corrupt voting practices, but you're not completely out of the woods, like I was telling you earlier here, because you still have the dummy ballots that have not that has not been eliminated yet.
Yeah, there are still, several steps left, I think, to broad sweeping electoral reform. A lot of times people assume that it means changing the constitution and so forth, but it very often, does not. It very often means small wins. The removal of the curtain is something that we view as a small win. It was a request that I sent to the Prime Minister last September, actually. Several follow-ups back and forth, and then earlier this year we decided to send a draft to Raeyhon to speed the process along, because there is a legislative capacity issue in government, in parliament, actually in the entire kingdom. So we consulted with a legislative lawyer who drafted it, sent it on, and then the Prime Minister's cabinet handled it from there, sending it to legal affairs. So it kind of went through that vetting process, and now it's been approved in COM on its way to His Excellency the Governor. The thing I want people to realize is that yes, it is a win when it comes to electoral reform. Very often, even parliamentarians have talked about getting rid of Article 59, or which is a check and a balance in the Constitution that I believe is required. The stopping MPs from jumping ship, which in the past I think has been very much used as I didn't get what I want, so I'm going to leave kind of issue. But if we look at MP Weever, MP Duncan, and to an extent I assume even MP Emmanuel, where they literally came to differences in ideology and in thinking with their parties, so they step back. That is how you're meant to go independent, so to speak. I think, so you have to kind of keep in mind that everyone has the right to also say, my party is doing things that I cannot agree with. It does not settle my conscience, and I need to step back. But that's for people to weigh.
Right.
And then if you believe that this person has left for reasons that are not valid, or that you cannot agree with or abide by, then you have to punish them at the polls, basically.
Totally agree with that. Yeah, because we've seen that happen so often, whereas someone goes to the polls and I'm going to vote for MP, this particular individual running on this particular slate, and then eventually within a few months he or she jumps and moves on independently or joins with a coalition.
I just want to reiterate what Melissa said, especially because it's applicable for me going independent. Every single time, it was literally a power play. It was a power play because someone didn't get their friends to be hooked up through preferential treatment of contractual, of giving contracts out. That's literally what it is. And that is the corruption that MP Peterson was referring to just now. As in, it's in your face. It was there in your face. This is why we have had so much uncertainty and so much government falling over the years, is because literally someone didn't get what they wanted. And they were like a little child, and they threw the toys out of the pram.
But people don't
It's
know
literally that.
until you come
Now-
out and you say it.
And we have to
Right.
say it, because
Exactly.
I tell people I have no skeletons in my closet. I have absolutely no skeletons in my closet. And if you are going to represent the people of this country, you have to remember that you are there for the public, not the interests of few, because that is exactly what I experienced. Not their friends, not your few that last time was here, I called it free bottle service. It's more than that. That's representation of the preferential treatment you get when you have to basically give contracts. And they need to know you are in public office to improve the lives of your citizens. How can you help your senior citizens? How can you help the education system? How can you improve your environmental stuff? And that's why you choose it with integrity to represent your people. And you hope they come out for you in the end.
I do not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But I do have to say, I think people know. You know, I think it's always funny to me how we say, well, people don't know these things. And I'm like, no, I think people do. But we've developed a culture here where you're afraid to speak out. Civil
Because there are
servants
repercussions
who
sometimes.
are afraid to speak out because there are repercussions, because they are, fired, suspended, removed altogether from doing their jobs because they chose to say, well, I don't think that's how it has to go. There are several who have complained to us individually, of the issues that they're facing within a multitude of ministries, not just the main problematic ones. And I think that is also important to say that, I try to conduct myself in Parliament, and I think Raeyhon and Ludi as well, where they basically, you have to empower people to be able to also speak their truth and speak what they know, and let them know that the time has come for that to be gone. That's really what it is. Like, the status quo is there. And I think that how we've tried to position ourselves is that PFP is the sledgehammer that's going to knock it down.
Yeah. You also, MP Peterson, you were faced with some of those demons also.
Yes, no, definitely. I was in the middle of it. I was the acting head of domain affairs of government land, and to my opinion, that has been used as a candy to basically fuel corruption. If you want something, you give somebody a piece of land. If we look at the last couple of ministers that were the ministers of Romy, how much do you want to bet that we can find within all of them that they either gave land to family members, cousins, brothers, significant others, and stuff like that is, to me, to my personal opinion, that is where it starts. Land, for example, is something that belongs to the public. It needs to go in an objective manner. I've been hammering on this since before I actually became an MP. And like Melissa said, I think the people know. I think the people, and I keep saying it in Parliament as well, and I use the harsh word, the people are not stupid, so stop trying to dumb them down. We have the information, and I have a real issue with us glorifying ourselves as politicians and as people who are elected to represent people, because that is actually a reason for you to now work. But we as MPs, some of us, we tend to want to get glorified for our efforts rather than the quality of our work. And you may think that, the problem is only in government, but it's in Parliament as well. It's in the mindset of a lot of MPs as well. And, you keep saying it, we go back and forth. By the end of the day, what are the results? The results are a lot of, discussions, which is nice, but nothing tangible. So we were talking about the curtain. I'm glad that, the Council of Ministers took it upon themselves to take an LBA made by Parliament and, push it forward, because that's showing that you're reaching across the board. Before this term, I don't think we've ever had anything like that. MPs presenting LBA proposals. So I mean, we're reaching, a good point, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah. All right. Now let's talk about the recent developments in Parliament. One of them is the deadlock vote and the noise pollution ordinance. Come on, Peter Weever, come on.
I believe that the deciding factor in that vote was MP Gumbs.
Right. Okay.
But I think, for instance,
because you made some very good points when you were trying to explained basically, and I've watched the video over and over again, and I was like, yes, that's a very good point, because when you're talking about noise pollution is one thing, and then at the same time also you were drawing reference to something else, I believe, that you can't compare the two. You can't
combine them.
So correct,
again,
combine them.
and
right.
I need to just say this for the listening public, the listening persons that didn't have a chance to tune into that. I think exactly what happened in that meeting, where you're trying to extend opening times of nightlife, of businesses in general, and as well as combining that with noise pollution, is exactly the kind of stuff that I wanted to move away from, because that came as a result of preferential treatment to one group on the island at the expense of an entire neighborhood. So you have to think of it that way. When the neighborhood goes into a government to object to extended business hours, you listen to those persons. You don't worry with me. I'm one individual, but you had 30 people come in. This is exactly the point. What kind of representation do you want in office? And it's that. It proved my example exactly that. And that's why I said kudos to you, because what I meant to say was you had the cojones, after blatantly basically showing preferential treatment to someone to a group that would be there, because you had friends that had businesses within there, you had friends that were employed in there, and you get your free bottle service. You had the cojones to come to Parliament to present something that does not benefit your public. Your public.
Right.
Do you know, I have had people, I said, wow, I'd never imagined that I would have so many people reaching out to me for this. I had a lot reaching out to me when I was minister, but after that meeting, they were like, wow, you're brave for doing that, and thank you for doing it. I had a lady that messaged me and said, I just sent a letter to all the ministers as well as all of Parliament. Did you get my letter? Can we meet? And I said, absolutely, let's meet this week. Because you can't imagine how people are disenfranchised by the decisions made by their representatives, which impact their life, which impact their health. So when you're going to represent something, that is short-sighted, because it's done in a very egotistical way, where you're only looking out for one person who can help you today. You're not looking out at your entire population. And that noise pollution is one part of the entire living environment part that I have a proposal. And I must say that, coming into Parliament, I felt like, okay, where am I going to go? I need this support. And I got the support from people who I weren't even part of a team yet. I got the support from Melissa and Raeyhon in there, and I said, I want to get this done. How can I do it? They were like, don't worry, we'll help you out. You want some legislation done? So that's what's happening. And I want the public to know that part of the assistance I receive from this team that I choose to be part of going forward is legislative assistance. You already saw what they were able to do in their time there. And they have, and I have it in front of me, the legislation where it is part of the living environment. Living environment is not only noise pollution, it's what we're doing for expanding stuff related to water protection of our environment. It has to do with afal water, protecting the environment. It has to do with his expertise from his ministry of where he was in Rami, of basically protecting our hillside policy. So it's all encompassing, but not being presented in one legislation to think that you can be perfect, bringing in one thing. So noise pollution is one part of our plan, but it is also part of the bigger umbrella that I am going to be representing soon, or presenting soon in Parliament. I'm so sorry, MP Peterson. I got a little excited there. Please.
No, I just wanted to add to what you were saying just now, is that the reactive effect of us as elected officials. I do want the people to read between the lines, because the Council of Advice said something that basically falls in line with what you said, and that was that when we, as government, when we find these illegal practices, when we have clubs and establishments who are open after the times that they were supposed to be closed by law, all of these things that the Council of Advice asked in their assessment, why are we trying to legalize an illegal activity instead of trying to fix it, instead of trying to make it, legal as to what the law is actually allowing right now? And that's what MPs means. When we see all these things, these MPs decide that they want to help certain groups, but they forget everybody else. The same when it comes to the allocation of water rights and land. Sometimes, you have zoning in which, water canals are being, placed within the zoning as this is for the boats to pass. But what do you get sometimes? You get the big discussion where big developers now want water rights that go in between those canals. And then what do? You have ministers who, in their turn, are very privy to giving those. And I myself was a victim of that. This was specifically the Alegria case, where about 14,000 square meters of water rights was to be given off randomly. And I spoke out against it because I was like, how is this in the best interest of the people? How is this going to help St. Martin? And I could not find an answer. And like MP Gumbs said, when it became apparent that I was against it, within a month, I was just casually removed from my position. The SG was placed as the acting head, and then they continued with the process. And my advice basically just, went to the back seat. And this is what happened. This is what happened.
Right. You removed from obstructing the process, basically. We mentioned hillside policies. We were put to the test yesterday with that, with all that rainfall that fell. And it was quite kind of scary, though, because seeing all the water running down the hill. Well, how can we actually really remedy this situation right now, or it's already far gone?
I think it's pretty far gone, but I do think that it's going to take unpopular decisions to remedy it.
To stop, to basically stop.
I mentioned in Parliament publicly, there was a committee from a meeting. The minister had come to present his spatial development plan that they were working on and still are working on. I don't believe it has been rolled out or ratified. And I asked, have you considered, while you're working on this plan, doing a temporary halt to large-scale commercial development? It's not unheard of. Anguilla actually did it in 2005 for 24 months, while they themselves were figuring out how we're going to develop Anguilla in a way that does not destroy our environment, which is the very thing that we sell, the sun, sea, and sand aspect and the nature aspect. The answer was that it had not been discussed or considered. And I kind of think that that's a little paradoxical, because if it's kind of, to me, like I'm painting the house while I'm still building it. So we're working here on one wall and painting it, but this wall, the concrete still going up, still being poured, and that doesn't make any sense. I think any contractor who work their salt would be like, that's a little weird.
And you see, and not to cut you out there, but the bigger issue that we have with that is also that how fast are these big developers getting their building permits? And compare that to the regular person in St. Martin who has been waiting 6 months to a year just to put on maybe another floor or just to fix a roof. Because these are the questions. I have heard rumors of big developments, and I'm talking multi-million-dollar developments, and their permits being processed within 2 to 3 months. But the majority of people that come to me who have requested a building permit, they're telling me that they're getting the runaround. They've been waiting so long. It's been upstairs by the cabinet for so long. And these are the questions that you need to ask. How are our own people, basically the victim of these things, whilst these big developments keep coming about? They keep coming about, and they're on their. To me, it's, you can't even imagine the frustration that some of the people come to me with, and they're like, I'm seeing stuff just coming and going while I am just waiting just to basically build one extra unit because my daughter came down from Holland. Those are the stories that for me don't really get the attention that they deserve. But that for me is the most frustrating part.
When a building permit is issued, isn't it by law? I think that the inspectors should go out and look at the progress of the project or the building, if it's in confinement with what actually was presented to the department.
The inspection department definitely has a role to play, but I can also speak for the inspection department where I say that they are also understaffed. The amount of building permits that are requested, I think it's in a couple of hundred per year, but the inspectorate, they don't have more than 10 to 15 people. So you can imagine that every time there is a development, how do you go about knowing, okay, after 2 to 3 months, I have to go check there and then try to micromanage that all across the board. The Ministry of Romy, basically, after you get your building permit, they don't really come to you too much unless, something tells them that you might be building outside of what the parameters are of your building permit. But that process, I can tell you, is not that specific yet. But it's definitely something to look at.
All right. How far are we, or is it you, MP Peterson and Gumbs, where concerns the erection of these lottery booths? Because I've seen more have actually been rented in certain places again.
And I'll be honest with you, I have sent over the last couple of months, I think, 2 sets of questions to the Minister of TEAT. I had a set pending regarding the lotteries, but since I didn't get any answer on the other 2 regarding different topics, I sent a follow-up request to see if I could get a response. And this week, I'll be sending in the update request on those booths, because in the budget meeting, I believe, the minister did mention that they were working on adjusting how they regulate them and just in general regulation for them. Nevertheless, that's something that we ourselves are looking at for the future, because I don't actually trust it to be done. There was also a statement of there's going to be no new taxi licenses or anything issued, and then we heard contradictory reports thereafter. So it's very it's strange to me, but in any event, we'll see what if I do get any answers, what those answers will be. And the other 2 sets of questions I think are also pretty critical. One of them actually dealt with the Met Office, because they are also understaffed. And now if you look at the National Hurricane Center landing page, the Atlantic is like a salsa party, basically. And I think, there's been no update on them, on their facilities, on their staffing. And these are the critical points, I think, that that nobody really pays attention to. You want the Met Office to give you accuracy, you wanted to give you warnings, etc. And here we are yesterday. I think they were kind of trying to signal from since Thursday or so that we can expect some weather. Many people did not get that get that message, so a lot of people were caught off guard with what happened yesterday. And we have, I think, Tropical Storm Gert approaching as well in a couple of days. Will probably be just another lot of rain. And I heard even last night they were even cleaning trenches at like 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and I also heard those guys have to get overpaid.
Yeah, well,
overtime.
Yeah, but I think all of these are things that we as a party note down, because a lot of the focus, and this is just a bit to touch on what MP Weever said, a lot of the focus is on driving economic growth, economic development, but you run the risk of economic growth at the expense of your people, and you want them to be involved in that, because economic growth has to benefit everyone, not just a particular group. We talked about the noise pollution ordinance. That is something that, even if I look at New York City, clubs usually close 3:30, 4 o'clock with an earlier last call for alcohol, actually. And I was just recently there, so I know it, firsthand. So it's at a certain point in time, we have to say, well, is this what we want to continue to pour our energy into, or do we want to really look at our people and really look at their welfare? Noise pollution is one thing, light pollution is another. I remember years ago when the casino went up across from Whit Simpson Bay. There are people living up there who are constantly bombarded by LEDs, beaming into their home from casinos. So
the fact that there are casinos in such residential areas is alarming to me, but that's not a discussion.
I'm sorry, and MP Weever, I remember when you were Minister of TEAT also, you actually were bombarded and you were very critical about the casino, actually. That's the Rouge Noir Casino, just in close proximity of the Sundial School.
Yes, not so much critical in the sense of I was trying to control anything about them. It was actually everyone else around it critical. But what happened is the challenge that I faced as the Minister of TEAT is that it was already granted. Right. It was already granted to allow to have that casino there, relocate there, and then so I had to feel, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. When people are making decisions, they have to think of the long-term effects of their decisions. So I come into office, and here I am bombarded with parliamentarians and persons within our community asking me about this, and I said, legally, how do you? This is something that I have to legally now handle because the previous minister granted this change. And then I had to basically go and have the inspectors go out and measure from various points on a building or on the property markers, whether or not this fell into the rules of zoning, whether it could be there. There was 7 measurements taken, and 2 measurements is where I think it was about 3 to 4. So 3 measurements said that it was okay, 4 measurements said no. But if you don't put in those details in your policies, then you're going to have people interpreting it however they want. So there's no loophole. You interpret it how you want. Just be straightforward. So there's a lot of decision making that happens, short-term decision making on the island that has really detrimental long-term effects, because in the beginning you think, oh, I'm going to get support from this business. Maybe I get some campaign funds. Let me do what they want. And then after you have this situation, and then you also have the situation of when I was dealing with them in a very professional manner. I had to deal with them in a professional manner. I don't react. I am not a reactive person. Say, I have to close them down because everyone is upset. I had to look for the legal way to do that.
Right.
And I did it, and they were very cooperative at the end. But then, this is where I'm going to go with this. And this is where I tell the St. Martin people that, again, I have no skeletons in my closet. It wasn't my staff that was going to the casino and saying, I can help you fix your problems if you give me money.
Right.
So, and this is what the casino owners are telling me. They said, we don't want to deal with this parliamentarian because this parliamentarian has a staff coming to us saying, I can help you fix your problems if you give me money.
Right.
This is stuff that you're seeing. This is not the way to run your country. You run your country based on rules, and if your policies are not up to par, then you get your policies fixed.
Yeah.
You don't threaten people. So when you want to talk about political intimidation already exists from the person who's speaking it out their mouth. So that's what and I am here really to literally just have the truths come out right now. I have taken my time over the summer to reflect and basically explain to the St. Martin people, why they should put their support behind this group that is representing their party here today, and wait until the others come. And I can't, I know that we're not in elections and campaign season yet, but this is why. Why. Well, you know what I mean?
It seems like
it's
it.
3 months.
It seems
it's 3
like
months,
it,
Right.
So
There is the love.
there's a lot, Grace,
Of course,
that, I know that today, in case the public were wondering, that we're going over a lot of topics. The whole point today was really for us to come out as a unit, because we're the ones that are now in Parliament. Yes, I am independent, but I'm letting people know where I'm going. To come out here as a unit, to introduce us together, and then have the rest of the team come out, just so that they know where you stand, why you are there with them, why you chose to be part of a group that has integrity behind them, or integrity ingrained in them, innate to them. So, and that's what I want to tell the public. And I want to also tell the public that, when people are questioning, when they ask me, I've had a lot of questions, oh, you think you're going to be supported with a group like that? Absolutely, I will. And I want to be really open about the fact that when I went into when I decided to run, I literally, what was driving me was, I can't sit back here and watch things go the way they are. I don't think that one person alone, that I would have gone in and changed everything. No, but you need a voice. You have that little voice that you plant the seed. You keep telling the public what we deserve. We deserve better. We deserve better. We deserve better. And like Melissa said, I had a mother, a father, and an aunt. So Leroy, Tessie, and Millicent did not want me to run. I have family members that were really not supportive of me running with the party I was running with. I at the time I was 40. How old? 40 years old, I think. Do the math. I was 40. I was 40 years old when elections happened, and I believe that I have been educated enough and raised in a good enough way to be able to make independent decisions. And I will always be appreciative of the fact that I was able to have a voice that represented the people in the best way that I could. And I will always be appreciative and grateful for the party that got me there. Did it cause a little bit of friction within my family and my support group? Absolutely. And I appreciate those family members, if you're listening in, that told me, Ludi, we love you. We're not so crazy about who you're running with. Right. And then it gave me such pride to actually be at a family event. And then I walked in with Melissa and they started screaming.
Wow.
And then, and I was like, well, I was going to announce it. No, didn't mean to take away your birthday, excitement from the rest. I didn't want to take your attention, but I walked in and it was such a proud feeling, because you have to decide where you're going to go with your political career. Are you going to stay where you had already been questioned, where with your personal experience, you have literally been potentially bashed, but when pressure comes on me, I don't cry. I literally just get up and I fight again.
Right.
I don't like pressure. I actually strive under pressure.
Right.
And so and I will be there to rise again, and I will be there to represent the people again. And I just want to tell the public that yes, my family does support me. They are behind me.
All right.
And they are very proud of this decision I've made, and I am extremely proud of the decision I've made. I got emotional in one of our team meetings, in our prep meetings, and I was like, guys, I just feel so proud. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, because it just feels right. And people had asked me so many times, why didn't you go with PFP? And I'm not a naive person. I knew some people. I didn't know everything about people when I went in. And after you're in there, you need to be a little bit more critical and picky and choosy of where you're going to go and where you're going to best fit. And sometimes it's not the same. This is not a change based on I didn't get a contract, or my family member didn't get a contract, or my employee or my driver didn't get a contract. This is literally a change based on ideologies, a change based on the where you are literally representing your community.
And I think even an approach to what do you call it? No, but even an approach to Parliament, it takes that type of change. We briefly touched on the deadlock vote that occurred.
Right.
That was for the 2021 country financials. And we're in a situation in Parliament now where the coalition itself is down to 6 members. MP Bijlani is recovering, thankfully, from his procedure. MP Marlin is off island until he says the 27th. So we were facing a potential. It was a tough meeting.
And let's just say if this was a term before this one, then the meetings would have not probably went how it
Okay.
Because I realized when it was coming down to vote on it, you have to make a decision, I think, and this is where we try to emulate that mantra of political maturity. I had to make a decision where am I going to vote against this law for the sake of I'm opposition and this is coalition, and send it all the way back to the drawing board so that the SWAB has to do work on it again, the Council of Advice has to work on it again, etc. Or do I decide to vote for it, even though I have my reservations, and then at least it's deadlocked and it lives to see another day.
Right.
And that's essentially how that went down. And I think that is the type of maturity that I want to see in more of our representatives, because I'll be honest, there are people who have been in Parliament who then and now who will literally just, as long as it's opposition, it's a no.
Correct.
And they're there and they're like, it's a no. Like you vote against whatever is brought by the other guy, no matter what. But I
don't see the bigger picture.
Yes.
How important
the waste of time of sending a law all the way back to the drawing board. So it was a very split-second decision because MP Ramu had to leave due to a family emergency, which I'm glad that is working itself out. MP Emmanuel also left. So we were stuck at a
the count was basically
10 of us in there.
Yeah. Wow, 5-5.
Yeah. So it would have been 6-5. It would have been 6-4.
It would have been 6-5.
6-4, yeah.
After MP left.
6-4.
Yeah, it was 6-4, but like MPGum said, political maturity goes a long way, and we want to lead by example. A lot of people think, when MP Gumbs voted, I think it was 4, and we voted against.
Right.
The reaction in the room was, "Oh my God!" And,
when I read that, I was.
And I'm like, guys, I think you all should know by now that me and MP Gumbs are on the same wavelength at all times.
Yeah.
Do not think that you can tell me something
But
she doesn't know,
party, right?
and vice versa. We spoke about it. She already had the intention to vote for it in the case, that it would go down that road. But then when everything came about and it came up to the 5-5, that was actually brilliant, because we were also of the opinion that, look, me and MP Weever, we voted against it. I voted against it purely out of a legal principle. The Algemene Kamer is there. They are a body that are there to supplement us as Parliament in our decision making with their advices. If you look at the advice from the Algemene Kamer on the jaarrekeningen, it is very critical, and it gives you a certain amount of points that the Algemene Kamer says of the General Audit Chamber, that if these points are adhered to, then you could approve the jaarrekeningen. That's their advice to us as Parliament. Needless to say, those points have not come about and have not been fixed. But do you then deny a government the passing of their approval, actually to discharge them as per the jaarrekeningen, or do you send them back to the drawing board? Now, that is where we had to basically weigh off the pros and the cons, and I'm glad that it becomes weighted, in that split second, because we were against it. I was not going to vote for it because I am not there to give you no quarters. But MP Gumbs saw the logic in it, and I agreed. And that's how
It was quick math.
Yeah, it was quick math.
Literally,
it was on the spot.
Yeah, because I was like, oh no.
If people could see our you know,
Right.
live
The fastest
WhatsApp
math I've
chat,
ever done.
yeah,
Shout out to Miss Rose.
Yeah.
and
Basically, you saved the day.
it came as a blessing in disguise.
It-
Because
right,
now the
right.
Minister of Finance does not have to go
All the way
to
back
the
to
drawing
the
board.
board. We'll come back
All we have to
vote
do
on it,
is
right?
reschedule the
And vote
meeting,
on it
and
again.
then hopefully by then he can convince some of the MPs that voted against that indeed he's fixing these issues. And then maybe some of us can see the light in it, and then the other can will pass. That's how it's supposed to go.
And I think that's how we've tried to conduct ourselves. I think we've voted for the budget before a few times, which is unheard of. I've literally had persons say to me like, "You guys are the friendliest opposition I've ever encountered." In the sense that we vote, because again, the history has been.
I think we are the only members of
vote against
opposition this term that actually voted for a budget while sitting in opposition. I don't think that's happened any term before this term.
Not really,
Yeah, but you look at it from
Hence the hypocrisy.
Yeah, when you're looking
now that I don't get.
you're basically looking at it from a different perspective also. Does that mean in opposition?
Yeah.
But the benefits of it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's
Right. You have to
exactly
see-
how you
yeah,
should be
which is
running
how
the
it should
country.
Exactly.
There is no opposition. There's Article 44 of the Constitution, and I keep telling people the 15 of us represent everybody. That means that everybody that voted for the All Party, for the National Alliance Party, I represent them too. Regardless, regardless of their political affiliations. And that's how it goes. That's how it's supposed to be.
Right. There were some, basically, let's talk education because schools are out today due to the weather. Of course, we understand and we respect that whether it rains or not. But the fact of the matter is that you took precautions just in case.
Yes.
A lot of people are critical about it. But you're always going to get that. And, like they say, damn if you do, damn if you don't. So, but in that situation now that we're in, we've been hearing, and I including MP Bunkaper was recently in the program on Friday, was very critical about the educational institutions on the island, namely the schools.
Yeah.
That a lot of the schools have not been completed. There are problems with children who actually can't afford to pay school fees. They don't have money to pay uniforms. They will be deprived from a report card if they don't pay the full school tuition. How does the PFP intend to approach this situation?
Well, Grace, I think education as a whole needs a very holistic kind of approach and wildly different to how we've been approaching it as a country so far. We're actually working on bringing something that's a little small, might be considered small for some. But for me, it's something that I've observed while I was at school. It is continuing today, actually worse than it was prior, which is kind of trying to ease the stress on children from having to adhere to guidelines and policies set forth by adults who maybe are out of touch with reality. And I'm speaking mainly of the dress codes, for example, where it comes to uniforms, when it comes to the type of shoes you can have, how long your hair can be, etc. And trying to give a little more power to the country to say that, you can have these ideas if you want, but they cannot hamper a child's right to an education. It's something that's been done in Anguilla. Deanne Kentish Rogers had done that in her first term, I believe, where she basically stopped schools from discriminating against certain hairstyles. And, I've discussed this with MP Peterson in, great detail, that when you look at the discussion of decolonization, these are some of the small things you can do that are actually considered decolonization, because the codes and restrictions on particularly Black children's hair is something that is argued the world over, in the US, in the Caribbean especially. And it's unfortunate it still exists here, that stuff like protective hairstyles, protective braids, dreadlocks and so forth are looked at as bad hairdos. Even an afro, I have a friend whose stepson was sent home because his hair was a half-inch too high.
Wow.
From school, and we're talking about a 9-year-old. You put this kind of pressure on them, and you're depriving them in a country where we have compulsory education. Children not being allowed to sit for tests because their shoes the wrong color. The parent has to go home, pick up the shoe, bring it to the school, then the kid can sit for the test. That is ludicrous to me. And I frankly don't care what dogma you subscribe to or anything like that, but that is not how education is meant to be handled.
And you're supposed to wear a particular brand of pants,
Yeah.
brand of shirt. Yeah.
So it's you put a lot of undue pressure on children, and I think on parents as well. You know, to reach a standard that you think is the right standard to have. So working with our legislative lawyer to kind of see how we can tackle that from a legal perspective.
Okay.
And indeed, when it comes to just education as a whole, school fees for the quote unquote private schools were meant to just supplement the subsidy that they're already receiving from government. I know when you get to college, if you don't pay your tuition, you don't get your transcript. Maybe you need to reimagine that a bit for a high school or a primary school, because that's a very early stage of education, and you could hamper, you know, them even getting to college if this is how you're going to approach things from now. I think leave adult things to young adults and to adults, basically, and not penalize children for what is there. That being said, there has to be some more support put in for schools, whether public or quote unquote private, from government, from the community. I think there also has to be some effort put into regulating the quality of education it is received, and that comes with things like assessments. I know that that is a four-letter word for Sumatran a lot of the time across professions, but that is the reality of working. There has to be an assessment there, and not even just an assessment to justify if you should have an assessment to see where you're at. You know, we talk a lot about technology in schools. Well, everywhere else, educational professionals have to go through an assessment to see where are you in, like, do you know how to turn this on? Or do you know how to use it? You know, because there's a difference. And we have to see where your level is at. You know, I do it with my own parents. Like, you want this? My mom said to me, sometime ago, she thinks she wants an iPhone. I said, no, you don't. Because, you know, I'm going to be the one using that iPhone. So I think it's good to assess where people are at, and then you can meet them at their level and then go forward from there.
Of course. The PFP party, will you be running with a full list of candidates in the upcoming election?
No. Because I think we established last time as well that, you know, slow growth is good growth. I think the people have asked, like, are you coming with 23 now, right? And I'm like, no. Number one, it is a lot to manage as a party leader, as a party in general. Number two, you do not get to build the type of cohesion that we like to have in a team. And number three, I think you get a better opportunity of putting forward quality candidates if you take that type of, you know, slow growth approach. And that's not to say that we're not going to be gunning for as much as we can capture this election, but it is to say that we remain committed to the idea that the integrity of the party matters overall and comes before everything else. And I think that comes with sticking to our original discussion, and Raeyhon could tell you of, you know, quality candidates develop over time, who, you know, can help carry the party to longevity.
Exactly. I think that last point, what Melissa said, is what's key. We spend a lot of time informing and educating our candidates, and we ourselves are part of that educational process as well. Why do we do this? Because everybody on the list needs to be informed in the PFP way. Quality over quantity. A lot of people say this, but many don't understand why we say this. You know, it has nothing to do with the individuals. It is more of what we are offering to the people to vote. If I tell you to vote for PFP, I will never tell you to vote for me, MP Peterson, this and that. We will tell you to vote for PFP because anybody on the list should be able to represent these principles. This is a difference that I see with a lot of other parties. I've had, you know, the pleasure of talking to some of these newer candidates coming on to not only existing parties, but new parties. And I can personally tell you that the guidance is lacking in a lot of those instances. Some of these new guys who have already been accepted to be on the list don't even know where to find the Constitution. And then me, as somebody who is now in Parliament, I have a word of advice: educate before you postulate.
There you go.
Educate yourself and make yourself, you know, the quality type visionary that you want to be in order to represent the
So
people.
this is basically a small core group you're looking at, and you
Yes.
have time that you can dedicate to
Exactly.
this group.
And we already
Exactly.
have.
And
Okay.
like Melissa said, even with a small group, it is so difficult to keep everything central, as Louis likes to say.
Yeah.
Correct.
But it is necessary, because what I am seeing now in some of these other political parties is that they are stacking the list. They are finding people who have nothing to do with the party, who have not done anything towards the party within the last 6 months, but suddenly because they're maybe from in an area or a specific demographic, please come to the party because we're trying to get every single vote out of that neighborhood, every single vote out of that group. We don't believe in that. We don't believe in that at all. We're not looking at skin color and ethnicity and where you're from, etc. We have 2 gums on the body.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we are not here to worry with that aspect of it. But that's what I'm seeing with the other parties, and this individualistic approach of candidates. We do not believe in it, even though I am the MP, Ludmila is the MP, MP Gumbs is the MP. It doesn't matter. When we have our group sessions, there is no NP or there is just
There's
Melissa, Ray,
Yeah,
and
there's just
Louis.
us.
There's just us,
Yeah,
and we're all educating ourselves in the exact same way. We're all writing the manifesto together. Everybody got to read
Which
it.
we finished
Oh,
last night.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's going to roll out
It's
soon.
been a time of
A lot of back and forth, and this was with a small group. So imagine you had to write the manifesto with 23 people.
Wow.
That's not going to work with me. I always say, Grace, if a political party goes in with 23 people, it says 2 things about them. It either says that they have a lot of support, that they are a very good group, but it also says that there is no room for improvement. That you are saying that this list is it. You're telling me then, as an observer, that next election, automatically somebody from this current list is going to be gone. So then how are you going to guarantee the quality of your association within these next 4 years and onto the next election? That's what I look at. So just for me, I tell the people, just pay attention.
The small core group that you have.
It'll all reveal itself.
Right, and there is no there won't be any the traditional Congress. You didn't have that the first time.
No, well, we
deferred,
we deferred our Congress to next year. There are some changes and improvements coming to the articles. We informed the Electoral Council, which is perfectly fine. A lot of people have been like, "Oh my gosh!" And I'm like, "Actually, guys, most of these parties have not had a Congress in accordance with their articles." Which is most of them are supposed to be every 2 years. I know because I read them all when we were preparing ours. But in terms of the approach to campaign, it's, as you can see, we've been operating within the law. A lot of what has been going on since before, during, and after Carnival is essentially illegal. I'm not sure where the Electoral Council has been in terms of regulating or calling that out, but we've chosen to err on the side of caution because when we do some things, then all of a sudden persons pay attention to how that's not the right way. So I think we're just focusing now on ramping up. As I mentioned, we have finished our manifesto. The website is being revamped for the upcoming campaign, so it will be available via the site. And just the new parliamentary year is upon us, coming up soon, on second Tuesday of September. So we're just focusing on getting ready, and then when the time comes in these coming weeks, appearing more. Not no big candidate launches. We're keeping it. No rallies, just like last time.
The same size.
Not keeping it any big rallies like last time. Just sticking to the town hall format that has worked for us.
Right. It definitely did, because you have 2 members of parliament that actually were elected and currently sitting in the House of Parliament. Let me thank all 3 of you for coming in this morning, and of course I look forward to seeing you back here again. And I want to congratulate, and of course MP, Independent Member of Parliament, MP Ludmila the Weever, to the team of PFP Party. I'll do that openly here on the Breakfast Lounge this morning, and I want to congratulate you, all 3 of you, and good luck, in the upcoming elections. Any last words before we turn off the microphones?
I would like to say thank you again for having us here. Thank you to the public for listening in to us. And as Melissa just said, I know that there's been a lot of people asking, when's PFP coming out? When's PFP coming out? We're already out. We've been there. Like Melissa said, we're doing it within the limitations of the law or the confines of the law. But you heard her also say that our manifesto is done. This was a group effort done. You will be seeing more and more coming out. So I do want everyone to actually hear that and remember that. You know, we're doing things in the right way, in a gradual way, and you will see more and more coming out as well. And I pass it over to MP Peterson.
I was
I know. I always end up with the same note. I always like to remind people of smart. And every time you hear me speak of a law, an article, or whatever, we can Google it, people. We can Google it. All of our laws are public. We as MPs do not have special access to these things. It's public information. And I encourage everybody to read these laws, read the Constitution, read the Charter, in order to inform yourself so that when we have these discussions, you can actually give us some points and some pointers.
Right.
And my end off is to wish everyone a pleasant week. If there is weather coming our way, do be careful. Make sure you get what you need. Your hurricane kit, your tropical storm kit, crackers is always my advice. And just a note on the 1st of September, we will be launching our headquarters in Sucker Garden at the former Mr. K's Cigar Lounge. So we do invite persons to come out and discuss and just meet us, and have a drink and have a snack. It is our second headquarters. We do have one in the Simsimico Bay area. We found it important to try, tackle both sides of the hill. And if you ever want to have a meeting, you think that you and some friends might want to have a discussion with us, feel free to contact any of us, because the purpose of those headquarters is to work. It's not just to stack posters and T-shirts. It's to also meet with people from those neighborhoods that we can serve from those locations. So thank you.
That's on September 1st.
September 1st at 7 p.m.
And it's also somebody's birthday.
Yeah.
It's also a mini birthday.
Celebration,
A
right?
mini birthday. My birthday September 4th. So,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So
All
we're
right.
doing a little thing.
We do birthday weeks.
Okay. Hey, that's gonna do it for me here this morning. That's all, folks, and thank you all so much for listening. I'm gonna send it over to the AM studio where they're standing by with the news. Members of Parliament, PFP party, member MP Melissa Gumbs, and also MP Raeyhon